being scared, it's about being smart, you know what I'm saying? That's how people survive, being smart. The toughest guys get killed because they too tough. Toughest guys get killed because they too tough.
O Block is the most well-known block from Chicago, but where Herb grew up in the east side of Chicago was an area nicknamed
Terror Town, which may sound like something out of a movie, but it's a reality in one South Side neighborhood.
How often do you hear gunshots?
Too often.
Nickname the plaza area as a shooting gallery.
Town and many communities alike were infiltrated by the crack epidemic in the 80s. A new substance took to the country like wildfire, a free-based version of cocaine that got people higher for cheaper. Cocaine at the time was a rich man's party drug, which adversely made crack enticing to lower class, impoverished communities. The country really hadn't seen a drug mentally paralyzed communities such as crack. And what came with the rise of the use of crack sought the destruction of many families and a direct rise of violence in many of these neighboring areas.
You think so many people are getting killed?
From drugs. From drugs.
Why though? What happened?
It's the drugs, the crack.
Where not only the users were harming themselves, but gangs began to fight over drug territory, where the difference of a few blocks meant hundreds of thousands of dollars to these kingpins. And a lot of the violence that came about in the late 2000s, early 2010s were a domino effect of the crack epidemic and everything that came with it. Where by the time he was just 8 or 9 years old, Chicago was approaching some of its most active violent years it's seen in decades. And the once thriving Chicago neighborhood was being left to rot by their local officials.
I'm from the east side area, 75th, 79th Street. I grew up on 79th in Kingston.
His mom was by far the biggest influence in trying to keep the young kid out of trouble while growing up in Chicago. By 10, she was sending G Herbo to a local after-school
community centers to go to, you know what I'm saying, youth centers.
Not knowing this would actually lead to Herb's eventual introduction into gang life and drill music. Here is where Herb and Bibby would meet, show their initial interest in music by rapping back and forth to each other 60-second freestyles.
I cook a nigga quick, no recipe, the streets know I'm a killer. And there a nigga next to me, so if a nigga step to me, they might get it all. 17 in his knee, and they might get it raw.
G Herbo and Bibby are infamous for joining the family NLMB, which formed out of the coalition of the Almighty Black P Stone Nation and the Muskegon Boys. The Black Stone Nation's roots dating all the way back to protecting the black community from police and other outward violence in the 1950s.
Our organization is a non-violent organization. We fight to protect it, and we're not the enemy.
Family is that they didn't follow the same rules and regulations as every other gang in Chicago. Herbert Wright would be raised around some musicians, his grandpops being a member of the Radiance band, and would have G Herbo messing around with a keyboard at 9 years old. But Herb himself wouldn't find his own voice for music until the days of meeting Bibby. Herb originally used the name Lil Heron or Lil Heroin, but shortly after switched to Lil Herbie, then Lil Herb.
At 79th, we on 79th, what they call me, young killer heron, light a nigga top off, leak him like a tampon.
Niggas no limit game, get rich niggas, that Temple Mac gon' flip niggas, got real rubies, got real shooters, them hollow tips don't miss niggas.
Who Herbo claims is the #1 person responsible for getting him to rap in an official studio for the very first time. Where Herbo's main purpose for starting to rap was to relay his real life struggles and pain to people that may relate.
Ain't no walking on the set, bitch, cause we reckless, we'll shoot him down, work a nigga like he losing pounds, Vito City.
Lil Herb would start to gain traction around his hood and other inner city communities.
No limit, G Herbo, I'm ballin' like Kobe, you already know. I'm smoking on pasta, I'm smoking on Ballin Like I'm Kobe.
Bringing his own new flow, cadence, and wordplay to the Chicago drill scene. Herb used a way more battle rap approach, initially rapping over Meek Mill and Cassidy type beats. Herb had some of the most demonic and twisted lyrics in the game at the time. Not only was Herb one of the best lyricists in Chicago, his music was very much pro-black, trying to speak to and give advice to people that grew up in similar circumstances.
My first week of high school, they pulled a fire alarm every single day. Like the school to get out, like, and we thinking, you know, when you kids, you thinking, oh, the fire alarm, let's go to the store, let's go ditch and go smoke a joint or some shit like that. And literally my first week of school, when they was pulling the fire alarm, somebody used to get shot every day. Like somebody would get shot walking to the store, walking to McDonald's and shit. They intentionally pulling the fire alarm so to get out of school so they could catch them to the store.
Lil Herb attended Hyde Park Academy in Chicago, one of 152 public high schools around the city of Chicago. But depending on where you live, you got allotted to certain high schools. G Herbo would attend school with the likes of King Von and Lil Mark and a bunch of other young kids on the come up in Chicago. But him being fully ingrained into gang life at this time would force him to drop out of school at just 16 years old. Came with attending public school at Hyde Park in Chicago was Herb risking his life on an everyday basis.
You know, they didn't want me to go down that path, but rap saved me. It was a way for me to kind of like get everything off my chest, you know? It was like a diary for me to clear my head, a diary for me to clear my head.
July 5th, 2012. Lil Bibby and Herb completely woke up the Chicago drill scene.
Couple niggas that's down the ride for a homicide when it's drama time. Run up on a nigga with the llamas flying, leave his loved ones all traumatized.
As the two would drop Kill Shit, which achieved over 50 million spins on YouTube alone, becoming the first track to garner attention from multiple artists across the industry. The song received high praise from Toronto's own Drake, where he gleamed the two upcoming Chicago stars the future. Within the same month of going viral and receiving a cosign from one of the biggest rappers in the world, the 15-year-old Lil Herb was confronted with a life or death situation in August of 2012. Herbo and 7 others were shot in a drive-by in South Shore, Chicago. For a week or so, the word from Herbo on the internet went silent, until August 27th he popped up on Twitter with this tweet, and soon after releasing a freestyle while recovering from getting shot.
Yeah, just a foot shot, everybody. What's best?
You know I smoke like I'm smoky, only Dutches and stogies. Couple blunts that had me up with the homies. I be heaven high, steady filling Cubans with this 7 high. Session after session, you ain't in them, baby, never high. Niggas need to stay in their own lane, trying to fuck a Herb, but I'm doing my own thing.
Crutches, casted leg, wounded, but rapping for his fans yet again. It's moments like these that created a cult bond between him and his audience. Truly made Herbo seem as a larger-than-life figure, and fans were invested in following this man's personal and musical growth.
You know, I had already made a name for myself as far as like lyrically. I was in the studio, bro, like on the morning, some shit like that. It was latest. He had called my manager at the time, like, yeah, these Nicky people, we want Herb to slide. We want her to come to LA and do a record. You know, we fuck with him, and we so high, like it's 4 in the morning. We have a lean and weed, all type of shit. And we didn't even think it was for real. We like, man, there ain't no fucking Nicky, hang up.
What Herb and his manager did not know is that was actually Safari trying to get a hold of G Herbo, Nicky's boyfriend at the time.
Called back like a couple days later, like, man, what the fuck is y'all on? Y'all not trying to come out here and do this record? We like, damn, they for real. It's really them. And she put me on a plane immediately. I came out there in like 2-3 days, met up with her, got in the studio. She told me how much she fucked with me, and she pulled the record up, and I did that bitch right on.
Taste of mainstream success, and the people went crazy for it. This era welcomed in a new style of independent media where sources like Academics, DJ Vlad, College Kid, and many alike gave full coverage to the new Chicago drill scene. We fully went from just hearing about rap and gang beef and songs just on wax to getting full coverage in media and ongoing entertainment. Everything from robberies, Twitter wars, shootings, murders were covered along with the Chicago drill movement, and depending on what side of the burger you were on, could make or break your career. These new artists needed coverage to be heard by the outside world, and these outlets needed artists to separate themselves from the mainstream media. A raw approach was given to the coverage of Chicago drill that was very satirical and lacked a certain amount of empathy for the humans involved in these life or death situations.
Just to get the ridiculousness of what's going on, let me read this aloud to you, and then you realize that this is why they're dying, okay? He says this: "Little ass boy, you better stop flexing on IG, for I see y'all fake ass BNC, shorties, BDK, die 5, at jump somebody else, little bro, shorty them, actors, Will Smith, insert demonic emojis, they BD, and they big homie Stone. Listen, I don't even know what...
New media and drill music did not start or cause this violence to occur in these neglected inner cities. It just made the world more aware of the violence and poverty being riddled in these communities. Depending on who you are, you may look at their relationship as exploitive or symbiotic.
The law of attraction and speaking words and shit, like, bro, I feel like a lot of that shit put a dark cloud on Reese head. You feel what I'm saying? That Grim Reaper shit, you know, because people started to be scared of him. You feel me? Like, the industry started to be scared of him.
Regardless of how you feel about new media and your perspective on the coverage, G Herbo was one of those artists that definitely reaped some of the benefits from being covered by these blogs. These sources helped sway in a whole new bunch of ears for these Chicago drill artists. And I'm not saying these sources made these artists, but they definitely aided in the progression of the genre.
Ballin Like I'm Kobe is really just my life now, from really walking the face of the land and shows and just growing as an artist.
Fuck all that shit you're talking about. When is Ballin Like Kobe coming out now?
Ball like I'm Kobe this month, man. I'm telling y'all, why y'all wanna do me like that?
If you went to an inner city public school, there was a craze surrounding G Herbo's name that was unlike any other drill artist. Where his album
Ball Like I'm Kobe
became somewhat of the hood's Whole Lotta Red. This is the album that helped Herbo really cultivate his cult following, but it's one that showed the growth and maturity of Herb at such a young age. Lil Herb would announce the album is coming soon in 2012. After that, you'd hear
Ball Like I'm Kobe all the way.
Literally everywhere, over every album, on every social media post. And the album wouldn't drop until 2015. I'd argue there's maybe 3 artists today that can make fans wait 3 years for a project and still have some type of hype surrounding it.
People asking, where the fuck is Ballin Like Kobe? Should have came out the first, didn't come out. Okay, but that's in true Chiraq rapper fashion. You kind of set a date, the date comes and goes, and then you realize that, whatever. Okay, you know what I mean?
And then late 2014, early 2015,
I don't know how that shit got leaked. That shit like 3 years old, man.
Which would eventually prolong the eventual drop of Ballin Like I'm Kobe. It wouldn't really be until signing with CMG in 2015 where Herbo would get the real organization needed for the release of his album. With that came the official change of Lil Herb to G Herbo. And I know it's as simple as a name change, but I feel like this is very much symbolic for his music career and has a lot to do with his growth as an artist. Here's where Herbo really started to take himself seriously as an artist, and an official drop date was set for September 25th, in which the album immediately got rave reviews from around the rap community, and still to this day stands as one of the most downloaded albums in the mixtape era of Dat Piff. The 16-track album is an ode to his best friend Jacoby, who was lost to gun violence in Chicago. The album lets you into the life of a young Chicago kid growing up in poverty, surrounded by violence and neglect, where Herb kept his traditional Chicago ties, infusing soul samples into the drill beats. You know, G Herbo was really known for the hard-hitting, fast-paced songs, launching into the scene, just the most disrespectful shit in the world. But this album means a lot to me because this is really where G Herbo started to become more vulnerable to his audience and his fan base, where G Herbo isn't afraid to let his fans into the life of his mental health and drug addiction due to trauma endured in Chicago. Tracks like Peace of Mind to me are perfect representations of drill music and what drill music stands for. Herbo talks about all the hard pain endured, all the loved ones he's lost, and his fears and anxieties going forward in his career. He talks about obtaining money, cars, houses, flying out to LA, seeing all these women. But what all G Herbo really wants is a quiet mind, an angst-free world away from Whole Lotta Red, not because of the craze and the reception it got, which it obviously did, but to how I feel this album really helped sway the narrative surrounding drill music and very much helped welcome in a whole new brand of fans that may have not listened before. G Herbo keeps a lot of traditional roots in rap, but infuses his own new Chicago drill sound. A true artist that spoke to pain that many others alike felt around the world. Definitely created some diehard fans with this one. Thank you to any and everyone who tuned into this video. If you happen to like any of this content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more similar documentary style content. This is Joey from Without Warning. Stay safe, stay blessed, peace.